Well, here we are. Welcome back to Disobedient. I'm your host, Peter Arena. It is Thursday, May 21st, 2026, and this is another solo monologue, off-the-cuff type of video episode until I can get some folks to interview and figure out how to hash out some of the technical difficulties I've been having in terms of the Riverside FM interview format software and learn my way through all of that. I'm going to just continue to post as I see fit and provide some content. The big issue right now on my mind is the Thomas Massie Republican primary in the 4th Congressional District of Kentucky, way up there on the northern edge of Kentucky, right there on the Ohio River, just south of, I believe that's Indiana, above it. It's a relatively small congressional district, and yet somehow, because Thomas Massie was targeted as the guy to defeat and destroy, literally tens of millions, some people are putting it at about $30 million, has been devoted to destroying this man, and they succeeded. A little bit more on that in a moment, but that primary took place on Tuesday, and Massie, being the gentleman he is, and the man of integrity and honor that he is, bowed out gracefully and respectfully, and then managed to get a dig in by saying that he had trouble contacting his opponent. I can't even remember the guy's name. He's just this cutout puppet of the Zionist state that was put in there, who refused to do any debates with Massie, and will do the bidding of his Zionist masters now, without question, without fail. Massie, however, was a thorn in the side of that machine, that parasitic banking cabal machine that has now taken control of our government through and through, federally, down to the state level, perhaps even at the municipal level in many ways. It is fully entrenched and fully in control. And I think that the results of this primary has a lot of tentacles that are coming off of it. One, it doesn't appear as though the numbers are really adding up. They made it sound as though there was a neck-and-neck horse race going on right up to the very day. However, some more reliable independent polling appears to be indicating that Massie's support was far, far greater, and the support of and confidence in Gallrin, the Zio puppet, was very minimal, right up to the very day of the primary. And yet somehow he manages to win by something on the order of about 8%. So anyone who's interested in looking closely at that is going to probably find some pay dirt pretty quickly. There was a lot of mail-in votes with the boomers and et cetera, et cetera. It's not my bailiwick, but I'd be a fool to think that there wasn't some shenanigans. All those $30 million just doesn't go to ad campaigns and greasing the skids for support by corruptible individuals of influence within that congressional district. There's going to be a lot of chicanery that goes on behind the scenes, and there's no reason not to believe that was the case. Wasn't the case. The other thing that I think is important to understand is that Massie's loss has further ignited a movement of resistance against what is now being recognized, something that I personally and many others had seen for literally decades. But we are seeing with an accelerating rate of concentration of power and influence this Zionist neocon saturation of influence into our body politic, into the corporate sphere. Every aspect of our lives is now influenced in such a way as to go in a direction that might be deemed beneficial to not only Israel but this larger entity that is the globalist Zionist project, which is it's not a Jewish thing. Let's get past that. That's a stupid thing. This idea of this anti-Semitism. First of all, anti-Semitism ought to be a merit badge that people earn. If you're being accused at this point of being anti-Semitic, then just consider yourself to be someone who's awake and noticing and paying attention and alert and awake to the influence on our elected officials and the people who are in the bureaucracy. The Tony Fauci's of the world, the machine of bureaucracy, the estate of control through the bureaucracy, what people like to call the deep state, is obviously imagine a large robot that has no brain, and that brain is then implanted into this thing, and that brain is basically this Zionist neocon machine that effectively makes it do whatever it wants it to do. And that works for our military, it works for our banking system, it works for the entire corporate system. Everything of any consequence in the United States and the Western civilization generally, because this is not just the United States. This is all of Europe, and it's debatable as to how entrenched and how influential it is in the East. There's a lot of talk about its movement into places like India. Does it control behind the scenes what's going on in Russia and China? Is this just one big theatrical performance of faux conflict and this Hegelian dialectic of thesis, antithesis, synthesis? Who knows? I don't know for sure, but my inclination at this point is that no, that is not the case. The United States and Western civilization of Europe, however, are fully controlled and manipulated and steered by this Zionist banking cabal, which is based in the city of London, based in Basel, Switzerland, based in Wall Street. This is the financial machine that controls and runs everything that we are and do. And right now it's in the process of subverting our constitutional republic even further than it has over the past 113 years since the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank, when it really kind of put the final kibosh on our independence and sovereignty. Back to Massie. Massie again, he lost, and the populace is now awakening to the fact that we are not independent. We do not have a reliable public electoral system. It is fully controlled and corrupted. And that lack of confidence is either going to lead to people divorcing themselves entirely from it, or they're going to stand up, or they'll either divorce themselves from it, be completely oblivious to it and participate, be completely oblivious and continue to not participate, or be cognizant of it, be utterly frustrated and exasperated by it, and then also refuse to participate. There is a growing number of people who are, in my opinion, of the opinion and the intellectual political persuasion that we are now headed towards a second American Revolution. We threw off the chains of the British banking system in the late 18th century, and it made an attempt to reassert its control of the recalcitrant colony in 1812 and was unsuccessful. Finally managed to gain control of us again in 1913 when they established for good the Federal Reserve Bank, which is neither federal nor a reserve. We know that it's a private banking system. But we are now looking at a critical tipping point in the total number of people who are awake to what's going on. You don't need everybody to be awake. You need enough people to be awake. You know, the numbers you hear sometimes bandied about with regard to the American Revolution was that only 3% of the populace was willing to stand up and rebel against the crown. And if that's to be believed, then we are very likely looking at a 3% tipping point here in America right now. And we'll see. I'm not advocating violence. I don't know what that revolution, what shape that revolution takes, but we are certainly looking at something that is akin to a revolution, if not in name, in spirit, in action, in its totality of being. The United States has been co-opted and is currently occupied, and I think there's potentially enough patriots out there to muster a response to that in one way or another. I pray it's not violent. I really don't want to see violence. I don't want to see people killed. I don't want to see people hurt. I want to see our sovereign republic restored to what it could be. We have the makings of that with a perfectly functional and well-written and well-composed Constitution. And with that as the backdrop to what many, like myself, are interested in having, we can reassert that and regain that. We'll see. Okay, back to Massie. So Massie, I think, is this fuse that has been lit, I should say lit a bit brighter, because I think prior to that, if we trace our way back on that fuse as it went along, cooking along on its inexorable path towards a powder keg, we see a lot of things that have propelled and continued to keep that fuse lit. One of which was the release of the Epstein files, or at least I should say a minuscule little portion of those files through the Epstein Files Act, whatever the heck it's called, that was championed by people like Thomas Massie and and his counterpart in the Democrat Party, Ro Khanna. The fact that the Trump administration and the entire apparatus that surrounds Trump, whether it be FBI, Justice Department, CIA, State Department, Department of Defense, Department of War, and then of course the entire media machinery, including also much of the Democrat Party, by the way, and then a large number of the Republican Party. What we see is the revelation of the fact that we have a body of men and women whose primary objective duty is to represent the people and do the bidding of the people. The people, without very little deviation or dissension from that one point, wanted those files released. And yet we had a president who had run on the idea of restoring credibility and authenticity and reliability and integrity to our government, and to weed out a lot of the corruption and put a lot of people behind bars who had done none of that, and then proceeded to resist the release of those files. So that was another thing along the path. The other big thing that seems to have been a yet another goosing of that fuse's ignition was let's call it we'll call it the offing, the offing of Charlie Kirk on September 10th of last year. So we're a little over a half a year since, and Charlie Kirk's offing remains a hotly debated point, and those people who ought to be most interested in finding the real offer, the real culprit, don't seem to be at all interested in that. And there is a great deal of reliable evidence indicating that our greatest ally, again, this thing that embodies and epitomizes and personifies and is the Zionist state, the emblematic representation of the Zionist state in Israel, and those people who run it, and in turn have people running our government and our media and our corporations, were responsible for and advocated, orchestrated, and were generally behind the offing of Charlie Kirk. And so, again, Charlie becomes, like the Epstein files, like Massie's defeat by a concerted effort on the part of primarily three Zionist PAC donors. You had Paul Singer, the hedge fund manager, who's been principally, considered a liberal, the liberal, but effectively the guy who was orchestrating, like in Soros fashion, these kind of globalist, cultural, moral, degradation type of policies and philosophies that led to the DEI and woke culture that we've endured. Paul Singer was behind a lot of that. And so Paul Singer was a major donor. Another one is Hank Paulson. John Hank Paulson, former Treasury Secretary under George W. Bush, who was the one who was running around like Chicken Little, like his head was on fire. He looks like the Jewish version of Lurch from the Addams Family. He's towers at like about 6'6", and was literally running around Congress in 2008 in the wake of the Wall Street meltdown from the subprime mortgage destruction of all of the chicanery that surrounded that, and was effectively saying, the sky is falling, and we've got to bail all of these banks out, otherwise they're going to take this sucker down with it. Remember that was the Bush thing. This sucker's going down. Yeah, well, Hank Paulson made out tidily from all of that, and now is effectively still ensconced within Wall Street and making billions and billions of dollars. And so that's two of the three. And then, of course, the other big one, who was the major donor on the order of something like $250 million that was shoveled into ensuring that Donald Trump won the presidency, one Miriam Adelson, Israeli-born widow of Sheldon Adelson, the gambler, the gambling casino mafia criminal magnate, whose widow now, Miriam, is a massive donor and advocate for all things Israel, and is a major advocate of the IDF, as is Paulson, as is Singer, as is the Peter Thiels and Alex Karps and any number of people who, again, through all sorts of shady organizations that are cutouts that hide have the hidden hand of major billionaire donors a very loose term, contributors like Adelson and Paulson and Singer. We have, there's a hidden hand because they create things like MAGA Kentucky PAC, some innocuous horseshit name that hides all of the literally tens of millions of dollars that gets pumped into a campaign to effectively defeat Massie. And so this is the thing. We are up against a major opponent here, okay? But people are waking up, and as they wake up, they see more and more. The more you wake up, the more you see the hidden hand, the strings that are attached, the ties that bind, as we are secured like a patient to the table, with some sort of maniacal masked doctor coming at us with a needle and the scalpel, getting ready to do whatever diabolical things that are come to mind. But here we are. So this is what's going on lately, folks. I'm going on 25 minutes here pretty soon. So I appreciate you listening to me ramble on. Never even got to Iran. Never even got to October 7th, which was another point along that fuse that has been lit. We've got a lot of stored up gunpowder in that powder keg that this fuse is traveling toward, a lot. And this October 7th, I think, was an initiator. I think that was a match that was lit and lit the fuse. October 7th, when Israel allowed for and promulgated and initiated through its connections and control of Hamas, the October 7th attack, whatever the heck it was called, doesn't matter, and allowed for that attack to become, quote unquote, successful, allowed those hostages to be taken, proceeded to kill, yeah, that's it, they killed their own people. The Israeli Defense Force, so-called, the military of Israel, was responsible for the vast majority of the people who died that day. And as a result, Israel has now been given the green light to execute a genocidal campaign of destruction in Gaza, and has not slowed down. They're on their way into Lebanon, and the only thing that's slowing them down right now, perhaps, is the fact that Iran didn't go down, has not been destroyed, has not been taken control of, and we're at a critical juncture point here, folks. Things are changing fast, and like the Chinese curse says, may you live in interesting times. So I'd like to close with a quick prayer here. I believe in our Lord Jesus Christ, and I believe that the only thing that really, truly is our weapon, our tool, our means of protecting ourselves and standing against what is truly an onslaught of evil, is prayer. And so I pray for you as viewers. I pray for myself. I pray for my family. I pray for my friends. I pray for everyone, including those who I would call my enemies. We have to cleanse the world of this evil, and the only thing we can do is to have collective prayer and belief in our Lord Jesus Christ and his love that was sanctified through his sacrifice. And may we all wake up to what's going on around us, and may we all come together as brothers and sisters and be unified in our love for one another and love for God. Take care, and I will talk to you again soon. Peace out. Thanks.